Welcome to the new series Rush Mode. Basically, this series is a kind of mini podcast with two hosts and three topics that we spend around 10 minutes on each. Today, we're hosted by myself, RadZakpak, and Mattzs.
Hey, I beat you.
First topic we want to talk about today, this is kind of Matt's idea. So the Master Chief Collection is like a conglomeration of every Halo game, pretty much, into one collection. And it's like got cross progression. It's like all highest fidelity. It's like cross play now. All these improvements to just old games all collected together. And he was thinking, what if we did that with zombies? Yeah. What is your like ideal version of a collection?
You know, ideally, I think it would be something like the Master Chief Collection or Smash Brothers Ultimate, where they take everything and put it back into one game. The only problem that I've had when I thought about it was a lot of the things are tied to multiplayer. Like in Black Ops 3 and 4 with sort of the unlocks and guns that you get. Would it be strictly zombies, or would it be like a Black Ops collection? Because at first I thought it would be cool to just have a zombies collection that would eventually incorporate every aspect of Call of Duty Zombies in it. And then just because now where we have crossplay, you don't have the fractured player bases, and I just think that there's a lot of really cool maps and things that are just kind of lost to time. So to have all that in one place would be cool, but then it also, it's like you need all the special mechanics and weapon systems and stuff, and maybe I think it might be more realistic to just assume like a Black Ops collection where maybe like I guess it would have to include World at War, but like let's say like World at War to 4. I mean, that is kind of, I know those are a lot of games, but I mean, what is it? The Master Chief Collection has Halo 1, 2, 3, 4, and Reach, so that's 5.
And ODST.
And ODST, yes, so that's still a lot. I guess it would be doable for maybe just a World at War and Black Ops series. So everything up to 4. And yeah, just have it ported over, because I think from playing the Master Chief Collection, I realized, I don't know, I'm not like super stingy on graphics. I know some of the like 1 and 2 do have a remastered setting, so I guess I am sort of contradicting myself, but when I played 3 still looks fine to me, and a lot of these games still around the 360.
Yeah, that's a question. Do you think, like, would you want all the old maps remastered, or would you want them just as they're originally made?
I mean, remasters would be cool, but I think I'm already asking for a lot. So I think what's probably more likely is, and I think would be a fair compromise, is just port everything over and like, okay.
I'm just wondering if that's going to make it more difficult to like add content. Like if you want to do like put rush mode just on every map,
Yeah. Those would be so cool. I don't know, and I think what I've just settled on is maybe just have it similarly to the Master Chief Collection, where it's like, okay, I'm going to boot up Halo 1. I'm going to boot up World at War. You boot up Black Ops. Because even going a little bit further, there's just a lot of cool things that I think are just kind of lost with each game. Like in Cold War, you don't have the gun editor, where you could have your color the make your own weapon skins, essentially, and there's things like that, like the emblem editor, that I kind of have been lost to time. So it would be neat to have them be relevant, and to have
I'm kind of like just mixed on like, would I rather it all be one unified system, or incorporate all of the other old systems? Like if you're playing a Black Ops 3 map, it uses Black Ops 3 guns, and that kind of the customization that was in that, versus like Cold War, where you can use operators and they're like that.
And like I think that's sort of why I'm including multiplayer, because to get the full experience, to get those guns and weapons and customization, it's like, some of those things you can only unlock through multiplayer. So it would be this weird, like, if you just got the zombie maps, then you wouldn't have the fun ability in 3 and 4 to see all your different weapon skins. You know what I mean? Like, unless they're just unlocked by default. But I don't know. So like
I might prefer if everything's kind of overhauled, and it's like if everything got a new coat of paint as well, not necessarily just because it has to look pretty, but it's just like have it be kind of unified in one simple, kind of interface and progression system. It's all tied in versus it all being kind of all over the place.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I feel like ideally that would be perfect. I just wonder if that's too much work. You know, I
Yeah,
think that,
yeah,
and that's why it's like,
that's the big issue.
yeah, like what would they realistically do, and maybe just like porting the games up in like a collection. It
Right.
seems
Well, see,
feasible.
the thing with that is like Master Chief Collection. It came out in like 2014,
Eh.
and it was a broken mess because of like
Yeah.
it is no joke like 8 or 9 engines because like the remaster campaign engine is a separate one from the classic one. It's like there's just so many engines in one title. It's just a mess to code, and it's like they have to
Yeah.
go back through old code to make sure because everything's something breaks when you switch it to 60 FPS or 4K or whatever. Something breaks. Switch it.
Yeah, that's
Right,
true.
yeah.
I think no matter what way they go, there's probably some technical quagmire that they have to get
Right.
through. I mean, even to kind of contradictory to my point, but when the game first came out, I know the customization for like 3 and 4 weren't as extensive as they were now. But yeah, I don't know. I
It
always
could be
were.
continuously updated. You know what? Actually, it would be cool if it was like continuously updated, where just remaster World at War right now, put it out,
Mm,
and then add on to that, Black Ops 1, 2, 3, 4, onward.
what I would just worry about, because it made me think of like the prestige keys and the prestige store in Cold War and Modern Warfare now, where they're starting to bring back all the old calling cards and emblems and stuff. There's just so much content that is just lost
Oh
and
yeah,
unlocked to Call of
the
Duty. So
cosmetic stuff.
yeah, like
Yeah.
and so the only and I know it's like I get I'm asking for a lot, like but this is just fun.
Oh yeah, this is like a pipe dream kind of
Yeah,
thing.
it's a pipe dream. But it's like I know if they remaster, they're going to cut corners and it's not I don't want to say cut corners because there's a lot they're dealing with, but they would probably nix stuff where it's like, okay, you get your maps, but it's like bare bone customization. Or like they'd leave something out, like I thought it was cool that you could use the face paint on the characters in Black Ops 4 for the when you play zombies. And I guess even your operators too. So it's like I could just totally see stuff like that missing, and that's why it's like I don't know. Is it easier just to just port it over and just be like, whatever? But
Right.
um,
Yeah. For me, all that is like kind of icing on the cake. Really,
mm,
what I really want at the core of it is just crossplay. Honestly.
yes, I think the most realistic option out of like a collection is probably like a Chronicles port or something like that. Like um, to have Chronicles 2, or I just want to have the zombies maps from Ether and honestly Chaos too, just to
Oh
be able
yeah.
to play with them with and still have it not fade into obscurity. But how that manifests, I guess it really depends, and with whom.
Right.
Because it just kind of it's not. I don't know. There's just I think Call of Duty kind of did it to themselves, where now seeing that what I unlock in Cold War goes to Warzone and Modern Warfare, and they're all sort of interconnected to the point where even mobile at some point is going to be tied to Warzone. It makes me think like all that stuff. Like I remember I grinded for those face paints in Black Ops 4. Like I kind of want all
Yeah.
that stuff back. Like I had cool calling cards. I had like this. I like that. Like now knowing that it's not going to be thrown away, I now have this. I have even more of an attachment to
Right.
these attachments.
Also more likely to buy microtransactions, and I know
Yeah.
I'm thinking
Wait.
it's
Yeah.
just like a monkey's paw. You get World at War remastered, but
I,
you pay money for
well, I think what you said right there has sold them on the idea.
Oh yeah,
I'm
yeah.
more likely to buy microtransactions. I think there's just some board of investors that are like, I don't care, we're doing it now.
It's pure nostalgia, and it's a money printing machine.
Yeah, I mean, I think to some extent, it buying cosmetics isn't as bad if there's more longevity to it. Like it's
Right.
not just going to be lost to all those when I bought like Ultimus in Black Ops 4. It's like okay, I wanted to use them in Blackout, but like that's it. But now that I could use them in Warzone and play and as it continues to, even when it's not a Treyarch styled Warzone or year, like I could still have the zombies characters like that. I'll admit that doesn't seem like a bad investment.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, really, at the end of the day, I just want crossplay, and I want them to remaster a Treyarch game, not just a Modern Warfare game. Those are cool. Those are well done.
I swear. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I swear they said they were going to do something for the anniversary of World at War. So maybe there is some remastered World at War out there that just hasn't been, because wasn't Modern Warfare 2, it was the campaign, but it was sort of stealth released, or at least up to the release itself. So there's hope.
There's hope. So I guess that's time to move on to another topic. Or I added this topic because I found it weird that the ray gun is in Cold War. Actually, it's not in Firebase Z, but it was in D Machina, and it's like that. It was made with 115, according to like I think the blueprints and like the terminal. I was like, how is it existing in this new universe? And then there's kind of a conversation about like Aetherium versus 115 and all that. So we'll get into that.
Yeah.
What are you thinking, Matt?
Well, first thing I'm thinking, if I remember my lore correctly, Porter took a schematic from the Japanese Empire, right? Was it Division 9 who did the ray gun? Like we eventually got?
They made the designs. The timeline says Maxis made the ray gun at the Rising Sun facility, I guess with the Division 9 design. And then Porter worked on like the second.
The second one. Okay, got it. Okay. So, and second generation is in the one that the first ray gun we see. Like, did Maxis work on the prototype, or because there is the ray gun Mark II?
That's right. I it's hard to interpret if it means like the upgraded Pack Punch version or like the Mark II, but
I think
he's involved with all of it.
Yeah, I think Mark II is American, right? Is that?
No.
No.
There's blueprints from 1940 for it.
Got it. Then what's the one that's the American one? I thought there was
They made their own versions in
Alpha Omega.
Yeah.
Okay. Never mind. My flub. But I guess the first question that I have is, does that mean, if the ray gun's there, is the ray gun just like a constant that it's because it's heavily tied to Maxis, Porter, Division 9. Are we expected to believe that? I mean, there were the actual divisions, but is there something like a Division 9 that emerged in Japan, and did they come up with?
What I know, there's quotes from the operators when they get the ray gun, and one of them is like one of the Warsaw Pact ones, and they're like, Requiem has some cool new toys, and specifically for the ray gun. I think the implication, because you can also craft the monkey bombs on the tables, is like the ray gun is like a experimental Requiem weapon created with, assuming the exo element, the Aetherium or whatever.
So what if it's? I mean,
it just happens to be similar.
Well, what if it's because of Sam? I mean, maybe she knows. I mean, her father is Maxis. I don't know. Maybe spending time in the MPD.
You brought it over?
Yeah, like I guess maybe she might have knowledge of it. That might be the thing.
Made it cool again?
Yeah, she made it cool.
Well, I don't know why it's not in Firebase Z.
I was disappointed about that too. Yeah, the new gun, it's like a ray gun rifle, so I guess maybe they thought it was too similar. The new one, but it's
weird. But so that kind of gets into like Aetherium. There's been debate about like, is Aetherium just 115 2.0? And it's like it's not. It has different effects. It makes different things. Group 935 came about because of 115 hitting the Earth versus Project N. Or no, what? I guess the Germans just had their Project End Station thing, and that had to do with Dark Ether. And so Aetherium.
But there are meteorites, though. Are there Aetherium meteorites?
Are there?
Because in the song, remember, it's the Morosco meteorite site, and then it says Alone, right? It begins where it's like we buried the well where the seven fell, or something like that. So
yeah,
the implication is
I could see that just being like, because it's like it's tied to the old universe as well. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. I wonder why it wouldn't be Dark Aetherium or something, because like Aetherium, like just like the ether element. I wonder, like, is
There's
it?
some big lore about like the Dark Ether versus Ether, that I'm not privy to. It is not my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
It's the Dark Ether is like tied in some way. It's basically just like okay, from what I can gather, the Keepers are basically did the same thing that the scientists are doing, like the Omega group's doing now.
Hmm.
Basically, just this is like this weird thing that has all these capabilities. Let's just mess with it, and then they started getting corrupted. Um, yeah, it's like the Ether was just basically like our dimension also.
Yeah, because then they talk about the Dark Ether sort of being like below creation, and not. I don't take it as like a physically below, but
Yeah,
kind of like there's this split. There are these three dimensions of where there's the ether, there's the material or our material world, and then the dark ether, and I guess maybe each world has its own substance, but it raises more questions to me because then if Aetherium is something related to the dark ether, why were the Apothicons using element 115 if if they were dark ether corrupted, and wouldn't they
I
be
think.
using?
Well, I think the answer to that is like because they're the thing is the Dark Ether like trapped them. They couldn't actually get out.
Mm-hmm.
From what I can gather, they use like the power of the ether, like the regular ether, and that is what 115 is. 115 is like rocks that kind of hold a ether charge.
Which is weird because I feel like Ethereum sounds like it would be what 115 would
Yeah, I
be.
know
Yeah,
terminology and all that.
yeah, no,
Yeah, but I guess the way I think of Dark Ether versus our dimension is like initially there was just the ether, and then the Dark Ether was its own kind of entity. It seems to some people are saying it's like it's a living entity,
I say it's Monty. I've always said that. Just sorry, my
and it's
soapbox.
like it's
My
like its own
soapbox.
thing. So then they start experimenting with it in the ether, and then they create our dimension. We're kind of living side by side.
Mm.
In the end of Tog, we destroy the ether, so now there's just us and Dark Ether. And now we're just doing the same things the Keepers did. Oh, maybe that's a bigger cycle. We become the Keepers. All right, never mind.
Did the keeper? Yeah, that's an oh boy.
That'd be such a
No, that's
whoa,
it. We're not going there. But
that's too heady for Cold War.
yeah.
That sounds like an insult, but it's not.
Are we? Because I know there's people who probably have been waiting about divinium. Was divinium just another word for 115?
Yeah, it's there's a periodic table in Origins that has 115 as Dividium.
Okay, got it. So I would think like divinium, Ethereum. I was just like, oh, it's just different people at points in times just referring to the same substance. That it just comes by many names. I mean, obviously, like some ancient civilization isn't going to be calling it, oh, this is this element on the periodic table. Like they'd have their own
Yeah.
terminology. So when I just saw Ethereum, I'm like, oh, it's just 115, but they're I mean, they have the periodic table, obviously in the 80s. So I don't know why it wouldn't be 115 again, but it just seems like it just goes by different names, and Dividium and Ethereum seem more like the what like an alchemist would call it. So that's where I thought they were sort of going with that. It also makes me think of prima materia, and if we are experimenting with different forms of I guess these energies, elements, whatever you want to call them, that I guess maybe there are more out there, which is kind of interesting because I would just always assume everything's 115, but I don't know. I also think I like the
like their kind of element that
yeah.
source of all things. Yeah.
But now it sounds like we have like three elements that are the source of all things, and it oddly enough, I feel that it also bodes well for chaos because prima materia could be somehow tied to this now. If that's the sort of the first matter, then maybe everything comes from that, or I don't know, because everything reminds me like the quintessence, right? It's the building. Is it the building block of all matter, or is it all matter into one? I forget exactly which one it is, but that's kind of like what they're basically magical elements is what it all boils down to, and
right. Yeah, I guess to round back to like the ray gun thing, it to me that means there is a pretty big similarity. I'm not gonna say there's the same Ethereum and 115, but if they can create the same like perks and the ray gun, stuff like that. I do think there is some level of overlap some way.
Yeah, maybe it's like a dark ether twisted one thing like that. I mean, I think the other important question is how did this start? If everything's sealed away, how did these dimensional portals open again? And
I think we'll find out. I
okay, so
think,
we don't know.
yeah. The thing I was thinking just as like a headcanon theory is like that Eddie, or maybe not Eddie, but like because Sam and Eddie were still kind of part of that universe, and they came back seemingly at Noct, or where D Machina is, that became like the hot spot, and
Mm-hmm.
because that was in Nazi territory, they were able to find it, and by happenstance, and somehow they detected something anomalous about it.
Although, didn't Sam and Eddie come back in the 1960s? Did you say, or is it when did they?
Yeah, presumably at well, if Noct is in the frozen forest, which is the theory, but
I,
for
I,
another day.
I guess it's just hand wavy that once the connection's there, it exists simultaneously at all points in time, or something like that.
Okay, and I guess for the final topic of the night, we're talking about the green lights. So there was a discussion on Discord a while ago. Anonymous made a thread on the forums about it. There's just some weird instances of green lights, and like we're trying to figure out what the meaning is. All right, so the green lights appear mainly. The first thing you think of is Shadows of Evil, where there's like the characters when they commit a sin, they're about to kill somebody. There's a green light, and it's like it doesn't belong wherever the location is. It's kind of like usually in like dark places. And then the other thing is like in the map itself, there's this green lamppost.
Which that may be like a reference to the Great Gatsby.
So it's like the Great Gatsby. I think in that it references like supposed to be like representative of like American exceptionalism and like the future. Like he's looking longingly at the light across the shore,
Yeah.
and it's like I guess he's looking at Morg City as the kind of Easter egg
To
implication.
that connection. Yeah, if I remember my
Mhm.
literature, because that's what Gatsby, right? That's the light he sees outside his house. Is that I forget his name? His love interest, who's married.
Daisy.
Daisy. Yeah. Is that from their house or something like that? Like that's where he always looks towards
Uh,
her.
I don't know. I don't
It's
remember
it's
actually.
been such a long time. I just always know that that's the light that Gatsby stares at. But that's cool.
Another place, a couple other places it appears is like, I mean, there's power ups which are bright glowing green. There's the weird step in the Call of the Dead Easter egg where the golden rod gets sent to like a green light from a submarine
Mm,
into the lighthouse.
hmm
And then another thing is the lamppost in TranZit that you can bring the denizen under and they open a portal. Like why is it green? There's a couple of places we could bring up, but like just are you noticing any kind of common trend? What are you thinking about that?
Uh it's hard because I feel like every time I think of some trend, there's some counter argument, and one of the other things that is really difficult is the separation of Treyarch, or the lack of separation between gameplay and canon lore.
Yeah.
Because you brought this up that I didn't even think about this, and you're like the power ups, and I was like, oh yeah, the power ups are green because now that we know that they to some extent are canon, and if it's this is a whole nother topic, but the sort of ethereal kind of controller, if it's like a higher dimension where whatever's that consciousness exists, it's able to sort of like will things into existence. So it's like, okay, that's kind of why the power ups make sense. But I don't know, because the power ups are like help players, but the implication for Shadows of Evil does seem like it's tied to their sins and sacrifice. But yet there's other examples. I don't want to misrepresent, but I think it was the Anonymous's thread that had a whole thing on this, and I
Yeah.
think their implication was that green is a representation of sort of that higher dimension just interacting with our world through something that appears to be a sort of a supernatural event. So, I mean, I think that maybe that seems to be the easiest thing for me to kind of conceptualize. To try and ascribe any other meaning to it is it gets iffy with gameplay and not. I mean, I even tried to look into like I was thinking about the significance of green, and I was thinking of the horsemen of the apocalypse, and how death is associated with green because it's like a sickly color, and there's like chlorine gas, that type of stuff. It's like even like Nova 6 is green, so the association of green and death kind of works. But I don't think it can be taken too literally, because you also have like green perks and points that help you. So maybe green is just sort of like the ethereal, or somehow tied to the forces of death, I guess, in the universe. But I know, I was thinking about Kaboom and all that stuff. Green's also the color, or not that it is the color, but it's a color associated with like radioactivity. So, and I was thinking of like the Kaboom, so maybe that's just kind of where they went with it. And then green's also just an alien color with like tractor beams and ooh,
And it also it sticks out, and
yeah,
and that thing. So
so it's like, yeah, and then you even said too, when it comes to video games, I mean, green's just a common color. If green means good, red means bad. So I don't know to what extent is lore significant.
Right. I think the main place where it's lore significant specifically, and not like an Easter egg, not like just gameplay thing, is when the mob, the Shadows of Evil characters see that green light whenever
it's also
they're about their sin.
Isn't it the vapors in the Chaos story too? So I don't know. I like.
Yeah, I think vapors are green. Yeah.
Yes. And the elixirs are green, right? In
some of them, some are purple, I think.
Oh
yeah, I think it's tied to the gumballs, because the gumballs had like depending on how you use them, they were a different color.
Gotcha. But yeah, I do like.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was especially with the sort of the biblical imagery. I have to believe some of the connection of green is related to green's association with death. I think to some level there's some crossover, but how far it goes, I don't know. Like, that's kind of iffy.
I like to think that, well, it's the theory with Anonymous was that it's like interdimensional, but like I want to narrow that down and say specifically meddling, maybe even Monty's meddling specifically. I mean, the thing with this, the sinners in Shadows of Evil is like they get influenced by the Shadow Man to kind of free the Apothecons and all that, but consider that like Monty does have influence there. He did give that letter to the reporter, like not give the summoning key to anyone. It's like he wants the cycle to go this way, so
I think Monty wanted that. Yeah. I mean, and the Mark of the Beast.
They're influencing. He's influencing them to kind of move a certain direction.
I mean, the Mark of the Beast and the Beast form's all green too, and the Margwas are green, and they're like these like described as like demonic entities. When the parasites when they come in, when they spawn in, isn't it like a green mist? Which again goes to the whole hell connection of like what was it, brimstone, which is isn't that sulfur, and sulfur's like sulfur like a yellow, it's like a yellow, but that kind of sulfur, chlorine gas, those type of things, those like deathly, sickly kind of colors are always associated with the kind of apothecons spawning in. So yeah, I mean maybe like it's not green being the force of death could be like like Monty or someone like that, I guess, just because it's dealing with zombies, so it's kind of their mark. Like maybe it's not necessarily a literal force of death, but it's kind of just a nice touch that whatever entity it is, the color that manifests is something that has been traditionally associated with bringing doom and death. So I think that's kind of
right. I think I'm thinking of ways that I could tie some of the stuff to like Monty. The power-ups, that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Putting them in there. Friendly zombies, when you turn them, who's controlling them? I guess eye color is weird, but just we could, for sake of argument, say that could be Monty's influence. Same with the friendly. There was one other thing. Oh, also like when Nikolai kills himself specifically in Gorod Krovi, it doesn't happen when Richthof and Dempsey or Takio do it. What happens when Nikolai does it, which is there's a source of green light in the mech itself, but it is like particularly shining on his face, and like when he's about to shoot him. Like I could see, because that's that is the death that does lead to the cycle continuing, right? That's kind of where
Yeah.
the converging point kind
I
of
mean,
happens.
I mean, I guess it's also like, if you view this as some type of game, why green could simultaneously help you but also be symbolic of death. It's like, if it's all a part of this sick and twisted game, there's no real, like, on our plane there's a distinction, but to someone else it's just more, torture and fun to just kind of watch them go through. So I guess it's like, oh yeah, just throw them a bone or make them think that they're
Right. It's a power up in a more like literal sense, I suppose.
yeah,
And giving them power or weakening them, whatever it needs to do.
it's kind of like a higher level experiment, or just to see for cosmic shits and giggles what happens, but yeah, definitely green's an interesting color.
Yeah, it always seems to appear when stuff just
Oh,
pops in existence.
isn't there a green 115 too? I don't really like saying this with like.
Oh, don't talk to me about Green 115. That's a topic for another cursed discussion.
Okay, fair enough.
I can never make heads or tails of that. Anyway, that was a good first episode of Rush Mode.
Yes, the first episode.
The first episode. We have never recorded anything like this before.
Never tried anything like this.
Anyway, thanks for joining me. Very fun.
Yeah, no problem.
Hope to see you guys next time.
Bye bye.